Now, as visible demonstrations of his radical claims, Jesus carried out a ministry of miracle working and exorcisms. He was finally crucified for these claims on the charge of blasphemy. But God confirmed his claims by raising him from the dead. If Jesus really did rise from the dead, then he must have been who he claimed to be, the unique divine Son of God. Now, most people would think that the resurrection of Jesus is something to which historical investigation is irrelevant. You just either believe this by faith or not. But I spent 2 years at the University of Munich in Germany as a fellow of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, studying the historical basis for the resurrection of Jesus. And I found that the historical grounds for that event are remarkably good. I can only summarize my findings here by saying that there are 3 major historical facts that are established by the consensus of biblical criticism that support the resurrection of Jesus. The empty tomb, Jesus' appearances alive after his death, and the very origin of the Christian faith itself. Let me say a brief word about each of these. First, the evidence indicates that Jesus' tomb was found empty by a group of his women followers on the Sunday morning following his crucifixion. According to Jakob Kramer, an Austrian scholar who has specialized in the study of the resurrection, by far most scholars hold firmly to the reliability of the biblical statements about the empty tomb. And he lists 28 prominent scholars in support. I can think of at least 16 more that he neglected to mention. According to D.H. Van Dalen, it is extremely difficult to object to the empty tomb on historical grounds. Those who deny it do so on the basis of theological or philosophical assumptions. But those assumptions may simply have to be changed in light of the facts. Second, the evidence indicates that on separate occasions, different individuals and groups of people saw appearances of Jesus alive after his death. In his first letter to the church in Corinth, Paul listed some of these appearances. He wrote, "Christ was raised on the 3rd day in accordance with the Scriptures, and he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 brethren at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. Last of all, as to one untimely born, he appeared also to me." According to the late Norman Perrin of the University of Chicago, the more we investigate the traditions with regard to the appearances, the firmer the rock begins to appear upon which they are based. These appearances were bodily and physical and were witnessed not only by believers, but also by unbelievers, skeptics, and even enemies. Third, the very origin of the Christian faith implies the reality of the resurrection. All historians agree that Christianity sprang into being because the original disciples sincerely believed that God had raised Jesus from the dead, and they proclaimed this message everywhere they went. But where in the world did they come up with that outlandish belief? Well, if you deny that Jesus really did rise from the dead, then you've got to explain the origin of the disciples' belief in terms of either Christian influences or Jewish influences. Now, obviously, it couldn't have been the result of Christian influences for the simple reason that there wasn't any Christianity yet. But neither can it be explained by Jewish influences, because the Jewish concept of resurrection was radically different from Jesus' resurrection. As the renowned New Testament scholar Joachim Jeremias puts it, nowhere does one find in the literature of ancient Judaism anything comparable to the resurrection of Jesus. Apart from the resurrection of Jesus, the origin of the disciples' belief remains inexplicable. Attempts to explain away these 3 great facts, like the disciples stole the body or Jesus wasn't really dead, have been universally rejected by contemporary scholarship. The simple fact is that there just is no plausible, naturalistic explanation of these facts. And therefore, it seems to me, the Christian is amply justified in believing that Jesus rose from the dead and was who he claimed to be. Thus, it seems to me that there are good reasons to believe that the Christian conception of God is true.